The year is 2050. CO2 and methane are plaguing our skies. The rainforests are near depletion, and the polluted waters are slowly killing off our ocean wildlife. But we can only blame ourselves for allowing fossil fuels to be our main source of energy, consuming excessive meat for a growing animal agriculture business, and encouraging a capitalistic society.
Fossil fuels play a tremendous factor in terms of the world's total energy use. Digging and extracting is done in order to obtain fossil fuels. Burning these fuels results in dangerous atmospheric temperature risings. This entails that if we don't adopt renewable energy soon and continue depending on fossil fuels, it'll only result in continuous rapidly growing problems on a global scale. Human activity is overwhelming our atmosphere with carbon dioxide in addition to other global warming emissions. Electricity production accounts for more than one-third of U.S. global warming emissions, with the majority generated by coal-fired power plants and natural gas-fired power plants. Without utilizing renewable energy, global warming will rapidly increase, resulting in harmful impacts on our health, climate, and environment. The costs of continuing on our current energy path are steep indeed. America is too reliant on fossil fuels. The US is estimated to spend about $23 trillion on fossil fuels between 2010 and 2030. The cost of fossil fuels to our economy will continue to increase in the years to come, unless the nation takes bold steps now to embrace the benefits of a clean energy future.
Animal agriculture causes massive deforestation, excessive water consumption, and produces the calamitous gas methane. To accommodate for a substantial consumption of meat, the animal agriculture business destroys the Amazon to make room for domestic animal grazing, and by staying on this path, by 2050, over half of the rainforest will be gone. Additionally, livestock is one of the biggest greenhouse gas contributors that makes up to 15% of total global methane emission. End result, methane from animal agriculture has the largest impact of greenhouse gases. It is projected by the year 2050 that emissions for animal agriculture will rise up by 80%. Finally, an immense amount of water is needed to sustain animal agriculture. We use up to 34 to 76 trillion gallons of water annually on livestock. If we continue down this path by the year 2050, most of the water is going to be used for raising animals, and humans will be fighting for the small amount of water that is left over.
Looking at our world in 2050, capitalism is here to stay. With growing disparities between developed and underdeveloped countries, the future of our environment is only looking worse. Big companies have us believe that capitalism is the answer to the problems it's created for the environment. Our government and the companies behind them have taught us to put profit over our people. Specifically, there has been little done on local levels to help families most affected by residential oil drilling. The sad reality is that urban areas we live in the most keeps us blind to the environmental injustices furthering the degradation. What worsens our environmental naivete is incessant consumerism, so much so that we are literally creating cities of electronic waste. This tragedy is the result of the limitless demand for new products and how our waste is shipped away and out of sight. Capitalism has made us machines and we don't have control.
But if we were to join together to start making a change now, we could see a drastically improved future by the year 2050. Our dependency upon fossil fuels would be greatly reduced, while our adoption and usage of renewable energy sources would be drastically increased, namely with solar as well as wind and water sources. With the shift away from fossil fuels, solar energy will become the primary source of energy across the world. This will be made possible through rules, regulations, and subsidies provided by the government, as well as decreased cost and improved technologies for solar panels, allowing for more efficient harnessing of the energy. Together, this will allow for solar energy to enter homes, cities, and even villages across the world. And it's not to say that we'll be fully without fossil fuels by the year 2050. On the contrary, they'll still be around. It's just that renewables will become the primary source of energy. The only fossil fuel that still continue to be used is gasoline, as it is far cheaper and cleaner than coal or oil to use, allowing for it to be used in places where solar has not been able to get to.
The future of food can be drastically different than the food of the present. There are endless possibilities to make sustainable food to feed a growing population. Who knows, maybe there'll be a social shift where more people are inspired to eat more of a plant-based diet, such as becoming a vegan or a vegetarian. Or maybe there'll be an institutional change where people are inclined to eat less meat. In the book The World We Made, there is a slight shift towards people being comfortable eating lab-created meats. It sounds pretty gross, but I'm sure there are some people in the world who would overlook the gross factor and switch over to artificial meat. Not only would it be more sustainable for the planet, but it's also much more empathetic towards animals. Plus, if it's laboratory grown, it's not contributing to things like deforestation. In the year 2050, I hope to see many community-based gardens. Community gardens would help reduce the amount of carbon emissions from the transportation of produce and livestock. It also helps solve food desert problems. It's pretty cool for people to know that they help create their own food. I personally feel that when I garden, it makes me a happier individual, and I'm sure the same will be true for others.
Some of the business moguls of our time emphatically stated that sheer greed and absurd culture of conspicuous consumption would result in worldwide calamity. Such insight from highly reputable business people, coupled with the huge economic inequality and constant cycle of recessions and depressions, led the world to global civil unrest. The economic time bomb finally exploded. Globalization and advanced technology, combined with the elevation of global consciousness, enabled people to share successful ideas and create an economic system that is not merely for the people, but for the entire planet. Fossil fuel industries took a big hit, while sustainable energy corporations thrived. The system was changing. After capitalism endured a series of refinement and still produced great injustices and large amounts of waste, the people finally decided it was time for a new system that allowed for equity and sustainability. The government began to transition from capitalism to social democracy.
Climate change is complex, but we still believe that there is room for optimism in the year 2050. What's important is to focus on not only personal lifestyle changes, but also try to spark institutional changes. It's clear to us the best way to live in is in a world without dependency on fossil fuels, food scarcity, and without economic inequalities.